A lot of data privacy laws distinguish between controllers and processors, so let's discuss what those mean. Some laws use the terms controller and processor, and some other laws use terms like business and service provider, but in general, they're talking about the same concepts. And it's important to understand whether your company is a controller or a processor because the obligations under those laws may be different depending on what your role is. In general, the controller determines the means and purpose for collecting and processing personal information. In contrast, the processor is processing personal information on behalf of the controller. They are not determining the means and purpose for the processing of that information. A classic controller to processor relationship is, any company dealing with Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud. In that situation, the company is the controller and AWS or Google is the processor. It's possible to be both a controller and a processor depending on the scenario. So if we take the AWS example again, like I said, AWS is probably the processor and its company customers are the controllers, but AWS may also collect personal information directly from the company for its own internal account management purposes. So if there is a key contact at the company that AWS needs to be able to get in touch with on a day-to-day basis, that is information that AWS is collecting for its own purposes and will be the controller for. The key takeaway here is that in general, if you are determining the purpose and means for collecting and processing that information, you're likely the controller. There are inevitably funky situations where it's not 100% clear who is the controller and who is the processor, and that's where it's really great to work with an attorney to figure out what roles the two parties are playing, and so that the contracts can properly reflect that. Controllers usually have more obligations under data privacy laws compared to processors, mostly because they are the ones that have direct relationship with the data subject. So, for example, a lot of data privacy laws put specific requirements on controllers with respect to privacy policies and data subject inquiries, and in general, managing the relationship with the data subject. Processors definitely have very specific obligations under data privacy laws, but in general, those obligations are all related to following the instructions of the controller with respect to processing of personal information. The contracts between controllers and processors should properly reflect this relationship, so it's important to work with an attorney to first figure out what role your company is playing in a relationship with another party, and then to figure out what the contract should say based on that relationship.